All my efforts to hear from Kaduna proved abortive, as I learned she later relocated to the UK to cover the shame our action had caused the family. I was reliably informed also that she gave birth to a baby girl and may never come back to Nigeria again. Mrs. Kalu became my informant. She was a member of our church and a staff of NNBC. She was the one who informed me that Jocelyn, in annoyance, had burnt all my things in her house, including my credentials. Pastor Lamra began to talk about reconciling with my wife and her family, but I saw this as a dream that may never come true. The damage done to Jocelyn's family by my action can never be repaired. The scar of the wound will also be there, and will cause the seed of bitterness and hatred to ever bear fruit any time they see me. I know Jocelyn will never forgive me, if for everything, not for impregnating her younger sister. Even though I knew I needed Jocelyn's forgiveness and that of her family, getting it seemed elusive. I began to give consideration to Pastor's suggestions on reconciliation and restitution, but how will I go about it? Who will convince Jocelyn I am a new creature? Who will tell Jocelyn's father to take me back again as his son-in-law? It was a serious bridge to cross. I started a chain of prayers for God's leading and guidance. Pastor Lamra had said I cannot marry another woman while Jocelyn is still alive. I was not getting younger and my parents were getting closer to their graves by the day. "When are we going to embrace our grandchildren?" was a popular song in the lips of my parents. I wish I could tell them they already have a grandchild, but I may never see this child all my life. I moved out of church mission house to a one-room apartment to enable me start a new life and replan my life. Pastor Lana, through Mrs. Kalu, traced Jocelyn to her new church and began to talk to her pastor on the possibility of our coming together again. The first meeting arranged by Jocelyn's pastor to discuss our reconciliation was fruitless. Jocelyn walked out immediately. She realized the subject of the meeting was our reconciliation. It took her pastor a month's rigorous follow-up to be able to make her return back to the church. She threatened never to attend that church again if anything about me is ever raised. The matter was put on hold for another 1 year. 1 year of loneliness and silence. Many sisters were interested in me in the church, but Pastor Lamra had warned me never to give attention to any of them. "You are a married man, you can't date any sister in church." This he has said several times to me. Among these sisters who danced around me in church, Sister Eunice was different. Epitome of beauty and humility. Her smiles are good enough to heal the sick. I wished I could get closer to her, but Pastor Lamra would not let that happen. Sister Eunice was a total opposite of Jocelyn. She will make a perfect wife, I thought. I cannot disobey Pastor Lamra, but sincerely I am falling in love with Sister Eunice. Wives, be very careful the way you treat your husband. If you refuse to carry him like a king, hundreds of ladies out there will treat him like a monarch. You know men now? I know you will be saying hundreds of ladies coup. No matter the level of anointing, please wives, don't frustrate your crown. I love Pastor Lamra for one thing. He was a goal-getter par excellence. After a year, he was able to reconcile me back to my wife, Jocelyn. The conditions for reconciliation put me further into marriage prison. It was either I accept the conditions or I remain unmarried all my life. Staying unmarried for life is a prison on its own. Going back to Jocelyn also is a prison. The decision was to choose between two prisons. I decided to choose the later prison. I returned to Jocelyn's house like a slave. This time I was already born again. The price I had to pay was to obey all conditions set for me and obey God in all my dealings. I had also signed an undertaking with the police never to engage her in any violent activity. With these conditions and my new spiritual status, Jocelyn became a god and a monster. The bitterness of what I did to her sister still lingered in her mind. The presence of my wife became a terror to me. I was practically losing my mind, but I was encouraged to endure and stay in the marriage. Whenever I came back late, Jocelyn would lock me out. I stayed late most times because of fellowship and the nature of my job in the church. I was the last person to leave the church every day because I had to ensure all doors and windows were locked before leaving. Sometimes when she locked me out, I will return back to the church and pass the night with the security guard or at the church auditorium, the den of mosquitoes and dangerous insects. Other times, to avoid too many questions, I just passed the night at the balcony. I became a victim of domestic violence. Initially it was emotional violence, but it later graduated to physical assaults. If you are nursing a plan to marry a rich woman for the sake of elevating your poverty, I beg you to drop that ambition today. Those who see me outside with fine dresses may not know the pains and agony those dresses are covering. Many people don't know why I was always wearing long-sleeve shirts. I have a wound around my upper arm, an injury inflicted on me by Jocelyn because I broke a glass cup. I wear long-sleeve shirts to hide the wound that have refused to heal. It was infected badly that sometimes it brings out pus and stinks like spoiled egg. I have been to hospital severally to get rid of the wound, all to no avail. It doesn't take anything for Jocelyn to hit me. I get slapped almost every day. Unfortunately for me, I can't retaliate or over-defend myself. It will be termed as domestic violence against her. I reported my predicaments to Pastor Lanra, but he kept encouraging me, "Bro Patrick, it shall be well." My life became miserable more than it was before I went to prison. I really desire to go to heaven, and no amount of oppression will make me turn back. Nothing again shall separate me from the love of Christ, not Jocelyn nor the things she did to me, I vowed. All my attempts to replace my credentials were futile. Getting a police report was a big problem. They wanted me to give them bribe before the report could be issued. But I am a new person now, I can't give bribe anymore. All my years of labor in school were burned in minutes by a woman I called my wife, just to get back at me. Well, I can't blame God, I was only swallowing what I chewed. Many things I suffered in the hands of Jocelyn were unthinkable and cruel. Some I have never shared with anyone before. How can I tell people my wife was beating me? How can I tell people my wife denied me sex for 365 days of a year? How well can I explain my emotional pains and my secret groaning? My marriage was resemblance of hellfire. Many times I have thought of suicide, but that will hinder me from seeing God on the last day. I can't endure these sufferings here on earth and still end up in hell. To further frustrate me, Jocelyn started bringing different men into the house I should have referred to as our matrimonial home. I will serve her and also serve her numerous boyfriends who treated me like a house. They do a lot of things in my presence, yet I mustn't react. She hugged, kissed and romanced them right in my presence. At night I would hear their moans during sex, but I had to keep mute. I will clean up their mess without partaking in it. I wanted to marry a rich woman I got. When the suffering was too much and was becoming unbearable, I told Pastor I want a divorce. I was ready to live all my life without marriage. Pastor Lanra tried to discourage me from seeking for a divorce, but my life was at stake and my Christianity was not guaranteed with Jocelyn.